OKC put up a good fight this year. They overachieved. Many people thought they were going to be a lottery team going into the off season of this year, but they were actually a 4 or 5 seed, I can't remember, in that Houston Rockets OKC series. And they forced James Harden and Russell Westbrook to 7 games before eventually getting eliminated. Now, following that series, Chris Paul posted a video where he was caught on camera or filmed saying that he was grateful for his time in Oklahoma City, and the overall vibe I got from that was like, wow, is this dude's last time in Oklahoma City? Did the two sides come to a virtual agreement that at the end of the season they would part ways? That was a question that was in my head, and then we found out about Billy Donovan and Oklahoma City not agreeing to a contract extension. So Billy Donovan, an accomplished, proven head coach as of this year, is now out of Oklahoma City, and it looks like they're going to finally embrace a rebuild. That being said, I think it's likely that the Oklahoma City Thunder do trade Chris Paul, so why not look at some possible, potential, hypothetical trade offers that could come to fruition this offseason. So I have 7 potential trades for Chris Paul, 4 in the East and 3 in the West. So let's start out East. The first trade involves the Big Apple New York Knicks. Now, the New York Knicks have been linked to Chris Paul. I mean, it's the Knicks, honestly. The Knicks kind of want everybody. They're desperate for some type of talent. Even if Chris Paul is older at this point of his career, I think the Knicks would still want him on their team. So the trade would be Oklahoma City would receive Taj Gibson, Kevin Knox, and the 2022 Dallas first round pick, and maybe they would have to throw in a future first and a couple seconds, but I'm not sure. Gauging Chris Paul's value is a bit difficult. So Oklahoma City would receive Taj Gibson, Kevin Knox, and a 2022 first from Dallas, and the Knicks would get Chris Paul. How this works, the Knicks will have cap space in the offseason if they don't pick up the options on Bobby Portis and Maurice Harkless, so they won't have to match all of Chris Paul's $41 million. So why would Oklahoma City do this? It appears that OKC is hitting the reset button, so getting first round picks helps their reset, helps their rebuild. They already have a lot, so why not add more? And they can also take a flyer on Kevin Knox, who is a young player who came in the league with a lot of promise. He was a top 10 pick. Just him going to New York just hasn't been good for his development. Maybe a change of scenery might be good for Kevin Knox, and he can actually be something for Oklahoma City. Why would the Knicks do it? Well, they need a veteran voice in the locker room. You can't just keep drafting guys over and over again and not adding real established talent, real experienced talent to mentor the guys you draft. Chris Paul could be the guy they bring in to mentor guys like RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and maybe the incoming draft pick. And Chris Paul could especially be someone to make offense easier for RJ Barrett. He had to play on ball a lot this year because nobody else on the Knicks could really get their own shot or create for others that efficiently. So bringing in Chris Paul could ease life on offense for RJ. And also, if the Knicks do draft a point guard in this draft, Chris Paul can serve as a mentor for him. Next team in the East is the Chicago Bulls. The potential trade would be Oklahoma City receiving Otto Porter Jr. Is it Otto Porter Jr. or Otto Porter? I forget. Otto Porter, Tomas Satoransky, and the 2025 Chicago first round pick. And the Bulls receive Chris Paul. Like I said, I don't really know the value of Chris Paul on the open market. You might have to throw in a couple more first round picks, or one first round pick more and some seconds, but this is the base trade. How it works, Otto and Sato combine to make roughly $39 million, which will be enough to match CP3's contract. Why Oklahoma City does it? For the simple reason that they get an extra first round pick, which can be another asset for the future, and they get cap relief because Otto Porter's contract is expiring this season. The Bulls do it because, like the Knicks, they're a team that needs veteran leadership. They also need defense in the backcourt. CP3 provides both of those check marks. And similar to his mentorship of SGA in Oklahoma City, he might do the same for Kobe White in Chicago and kind of tune and finally develop him until he's ready to start at point guard, Kobe White. Until he's ready to start at point guard and Chris Paul is at the tail end of his career. And also, quite frankly, it's just time to win games. The Bulls have been lottery bound for the past 4 seasons, or 3 seasons. A lot of people expected them to chase that 8 seed and get that 8 seed this year, myself included, but we are wrong mainly because of Jim Boylan's incompetency. Bulls fans want some success, they want some playoff appearances. I think Chris Paul could get them to an 8 seed and provide some valuable playoff experience for the young guys like Lowry, Wendell, Levine, and Kobe White, and this incoming draft pick because they have the number 4 pick. Now we dive into some contenders in the East. First contender in the East that I have targeting Chris Paul is the Milwaukee Bucks. The potential trade: Oklahoma City receives Eric Bledsoe, Ersan Ilyasova, George Hill, DJ Wilson, a 2021 pick from Indiana, and Milwaukee's first round pick in 2026. I think Milwaukee would have to give up a second first at least because of the length of Bledsoe's deal. And then obviously the Bucks receive Chris Paul. How it works: Milwaukee's contracts combine to about $39 million, which is enough to match CP3's salary. Why Oklahoma City would do it? They could get 2 first round picks, and they can get a young player in DJ Wilson and a quality veteran in Eric Bledsoe who could maintain some team success or be a trade piece for them in the future. Why the Bucks do it? I mean, it's pretty obvious. Milwaukee has to do everything in their power to convince Giannis to stay in the 2021 offseason. This trade provides an upgrade at point guard. I don't think anybody can argue. It improves their half-court offense because it provides more shot creation. Half-court offense, particularly in the playoffs, has been a point of concern for the Milwaukee Bucks over the past 3 years. As Giannis has ascended to MVP stardom, they've still lacked some half-court scoring. Mainly because Middleton, I don't think he can be a second option on a championship team. CP3 is a proven shot creator. He thrives in the half-court setting in terms of hitting mid-range shots. He's improved as a he's always been a good three-point shooter, but with the influx of three-point shooting over the past couple years in the NBA, he's improved that portion of his game. And also, Chris Paul would enhance Giannis in the pick-and-roll game. Mike Budd got kind of criticized this series for not using Giannis in the pick and roll as much as he could have. Chris Paul is one of the best pick and roll guards in the entire league, in the league's history. You pair that with Giannis would be the best lob threat or pick and roller that Chris Paul has ever played with, and that's including Blake Griffin. So yeah, this is a W of a trade for Milwaukee if this package would be good enough for Oklahoma City to accept. And the final trade candidate out east, I have the 76ers. In this trade, Oklahoma City would receive Al Horford, Zaire Smith, Shake Milton, Mike Scott, Philly's 2024 first, Philly's 2027 first, Atlanta's 2021 second, and Orlando's 2021 second. So, like I said, and the 76ers would receive Chris Paul, obviously. So yeah, they would be giving up Al Horford. Al Horford has the worst contract in the league, so Philly would have to give up a lot to get off of his contract and for the chance of maybe having an enticing offer for CP3. Meaning they would have to give up young, intriguing players and draft picks. How it works: the 76ers contracts add up to about $38 million, which hits the threshold for matching contracts, CP3's contract. Why would Oklahoma City do this? I know they're getting back Al Horford for 3 years of the worst contract in the NBA, but I mean, does it really matter? If they're planning on rebuilding, they're going to be taking on bad contracts for the next couple of years in order to get first round picks. And in this trade, they would receive multiple firsts and multiple seconds, and they would get intriguing young players like Shake Milton, who is a proven shooter, or he was a proven shooter in the regular season, and they could get Zaire Smith, who I don't really know much about because Philly never plays him. If they didn't want Shake and Zaire, they could maybe ask for Matisse or for Concord Moss. Why the 76ers do it? For number one, they get off the Al Horford deal. Number two, similar to Milwaukee, adding CP3 improves their half-court offense as well in Philly. Because it's a similar problem with Giannis, you just flip it on its head to Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons doesn't get a lot of his offense in the half-court setting, and the only two main guys you have consistently getting offense for you in the half-court is Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris. And Tobias Harris as a second option in the half-court is not ideal, so why not throw the point guard in there? Also, adding CP3 gives you a bona fide leader in the locker room Leadership has been a point of concern for Philly over the past couple of years. So CP3 checks that mark. And similar to what I said about Giannis, having CP3 as a guard in the pick and roll, running the pick and roll with Embiid, compared to when Embiid was running the pick and roll with Simmons, when you run the pick and roll with CP3, you'd actually have to respect CP3's shot. You can't just go under every single screen, and that just stops every single pick and roll between Ben Simmons and Embiid if Ben Simmons can't get past the guy going under. You can't go under a screen against CP3. So that would make a pick and roll with Embiid even more lethal. And CP3 can run a pick and roll with Ben Simmons. That would allow Ben Simmons to actually be viable in the half-court setting, like as Ben Simmons being that pick and roll setter. And similar to CP3's impact on Giannis in the half-court, having the CP3 Giannis pick and roll, that just flip it on its head for Ben Simmons, and the same thing applies. Now if we go out west, first trade candidate is the Utah Jazz. This would be a relatively simple trade. Oklahoma City would receive Mike Conley, Tony Bradley, Utah's 2023 second, and Cleveland's 2024 second. And obviously Utah would receive Chris Paul. How it works, Conley's got a gargantuan enough deal to match all of the money that CP3 is making. Why Oklahoma City would do it? They get Mike Conley on their last year of his deal. That's an expiring $34 million off your books for the foreseeable future. They get a young center in Tony Bradley, who I don't really know much about, but he's young. Maybe he is the future after Steven Adams. I don't know. If maybe they would want to flip Steven Adams for some trade capital as well. And they also get a couple of future second round picks. I didn't have Utah throwing in first round picks because they are kind of sparse in terms of future first round picks going out. So why Utah would do it? CP3 is an obvious upgrade over Mike Conley. You get CP3 and it would allow Donovan Mitchell to play more off the ball and not have Donovan Mitchell relied on doing everything for that Utah offense like we saw in the first round series against Denver. Donovan Mitchell was literally running every single pick and roll down the stretch in those games. And if you have CP3, somebody who is one of the best pick and roll guards in the entire league's history, down the stretch, it can ease a bit of the pressure off of Donovan Mitchell. And it could give Donovan Mitchell a lot more open, efficient catch and shoot looks. Just him playing off ball a tad bit more. Just a bit of a disclaimer, I wouldn't do this if I were Utah because Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are going to be upcoming free agents in the very same offseason, and they're both going to command max contracts. Adding Chris Paul's contract, and then you have to pay Donovan Mitchell and Gobert in the same year, that's going to be a financial disaster, and especially with Utah being a small market team, I don't think economically it adds up for them. Next team in the West, we have Phoenix. The trade would be Oklahoma City receiving Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, Aaron Baines, and Phoenix's 2025 first. The Suns receive Chris Paul. Those Phoenix contracts add up to about $37 million, meeting the threshold. Why Oklahoma City would do it? They get a promising young player in Kelly Oubre. He's basically entering the prime of his career. He's about 24 or 25 years old. Who knows, maybe he can break out as a number 2 option behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And that could be kind of your 1-2 punch going forward. You can't really predict what players are going to break out at this point in their career. Maybe you get lucky and Kelly Oubre breaks out for you with like a higher role. They would get Ricky Rubio and they could maintain a solid starting point guard, and he's making $17 million, but he only has 2 years on that deal. Aaron Baines is a good backup big on an expiring contract, and they would get a future first rounder. That's why Oklahoma City would do it. On the Phoenix side of things, you get Chris Paul for the same reason that Utah would get Chris Paul, to allow their star shooting guard to play more off the ball. Booker had to play on the ball a lot in Phoenix because even though you have Ricky Rubio, you still want Devin Booker with the ball in his hands over Ricky Rubio. You get Chris Paul in there, Booker can flourish off the ball. He's already a lethal shooter. He's good at getting open off the ball. You simply allow him to do that more. He'll be even more efficient than he already is. Paul can enhance DeAndre Ayton in the pick and roll game, get him some more easy looks. And also, if the Suns draft the point guard, they have a relatively high lottery pick. Chris Paul can serve as a mentor for that point guard. And then the final team out west, we have the Lakers. Now, this one is not really realistic. I don't really see this one happening. I think this is the trade that I see the least chance of happening, but I just want to talk about it anyway. The trade would be Oklahoma City receiving Danny Green, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, Avery Bradley, Quinn Cook, and Talen Horton-Tucker, and a 2025 Lakers second round pick, and the Lakers will receive Chris Paul. So how it works, all of those contracts add up to $37 million, which would be enough to reach the threshold. I literally had to throw in all those players because the contract situation in LA is so weird. You literally have the gargantuan deals of AD and LeBron, a sizable deal in Danny Green, and then basically everybody else is making below $7 million. So obviously they wouldn't trade AD or LeBron. You have to throw Danny Green in there, and then you just got to throw in a lot of other guys to make the trade work. And then you throw in Talen Horton-Tucker as like your only young option that maybe could be intriguing for Oklahoma City. That him and Kyle Kuzma, and a 2025 second because the Lakers' first round pick situation is dire and they're not going to want to give up anymore. Why Oklahoma City would do this? Again, I don't really think they would do this. I think this is the worst trade package that they could receive. But why would they do it? They receive expiring contracts in Danny Green and Pope. They get the young talent of Kyle Kuzma and Talen Horton-Tucker for whatever that's worth. And they get a second round pick. Not very enticing. But hey, who knows? Maybe Chris Paul's trade market is dry and this is actually the best deal they get. I doubt it, but it could be an option. Why do the Lakers do this? Basically, they get desperate to add a third star around LeBron and AD, especially if the Lakers don't win the title this year. I could see the front office getting a bit more desperate and wanting to maximize the most time with LeBron, just adding one of his best friends in the NBA, Chris Paul, and adding that quote-unquote third star. And who knows, maybe Chris Paul isn't that star player anymore at the start of next season, but we said that at the start of this season, and look what he went out and did. Again, this is the worst trade package for Oklahoma City. And even if I were the Lakers GM, like, the Lakers are my favorite team, so I can put myself in the GM shoes easily and 100% say not to do this. Because they would literally be giving away their entire team, their entire depth. And they literally just did that with the AD trade. They gave up like 6 players. You can't do that 2 times in a row and expect to just win the championship after that. Like, I know AD and LeBron and CP3 would be a deadly trio, but you're literally giving away your entire team at that point. So yeah, this Lakers trade, I don't think Oklahoma City would want to do this, and I don't even think this is a good trade for the Lakers. This was just a fun one to throw out.